Welcome back to another episode of the Pit Lane Yappers. I'm Mox.
And I'm Rosie, and this is our Suzuka recap.
For the third time. Oh, let's really hope this one records. But before we go into FP1, it was announced by Red Bull that Yuki Tsunoda would be driving as a teammate for Max Verstappen, replacing Liam Lawson, and Liam Lawson was going back to Racing Bulls, which makes a lot of sense if you think about the experience and how competitive this season is specifically.
Yeah. It's just
but
a
I just
shame
don't
for
know
Liam
why they
that is-
yeah. Why didn't they just start it off? They're like basically they just knocked Liam off of But
Yeah.
anyways, FP1, there was 2 track changes. So the first sector was resurfaced and they added 5 gravel traps.
Because that's necessary.
Oh. And if anyone knows anything about Fernando Alonso, oh boy, does he love gravel. Kill me.
No comment there.
Yeah.
And
then
in FP1, Alpine had the Japanese reserve rookie Rio in place of Jack Doohan.
Yeah. Weird choice. I would have replaced Pierre, but okay. But because Rio Hirakawa drove so well in FP1, Haas announced him as their official reserve driver for 2025, which good on him. But
he's going to replace Ollie Behrman as the most employed man in history.
But during FP1, I realized Yuki was kind of proving that it was actually maybe not the car. It was just, well, it was the car, but in the sense of Max and him have very similar driving styles, and it was obviously set up for Max. So like even like Checo was like, oh, the car's broken, and Liam was saying like the car's just not drivable. But Yuki did pretty well, but I think it's because Yuki and Max have very similar aggressive driving styles. So I could have told you that one though. But Williams called Carlos into the pits, and Carlos forgot he wasn't in Ferrari for a second. And he missed the Williams pit box, so he had to go around and do it again.
At least it was during practice, you know?
Honestly, I am shocked nobody else has done that yet.
Well,
with how many like swaps.
I'm still waiting on for Lewis to pull into the Mercedes.
Yeah, and he'll be like, "Oh, my bad."
He'll be like, "Guys, they just keep disqualifying me. Let me back in."
Also, speaking of Yuki, his engineer came onto the radio and was like, I think it was Russell. They were saying like Russell is this fast or whatever, and Yuki's like, "Yeah, I don't care. I just want to focus on myself." I'm like, "Go Yuki."
A self-love queen.
Yeah. But George also brought out a little British saying that I don't understand. And they were at, I think Marcus Bradley came on the radio and was like, "How's the car feeling?" or something like that. And he goes, "It's a bit donkey." Even the British commentators were like, no idea what that means. So I think that's just a George Russellism.
Oh no, totally. But you know, it's George, so it's fine.
But Alex, a lot of drivers were going into the gravel. Lando did it once. Oscar did it. Lance did it. And then Alex fully went through the gravel. And Liam Lawson was either right in front or right behind him. And he radioed, he goes, "Just to be clear, I was way out of his way before he went off." I was like, all right, that's kind of funny. He was like, "I am not getting a point for this one."
He was like, "Leave me alone."
Yeah. But the rookies seemed to be kind of doing better than their counterparts, and this includes Hirakawa because he finished faster than Gasly in FP1, which must have been a blow to Gasly just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
But while that was going on and while they were saying that, Alonso had parts of his car flying off.
Likely.
But yeah. We also lost our chief engineer. He announced it on LinkedIn, and Aston Martin has yet to say anything else.
Yeah, well, was he doing a good job?
No, but who is our chief engineer now? We don't have a chief engineer.
Surely Newey could step into that role.
Yeah. But he's working on the 2026 car. So, but the commentators were kind of annoying me this session because Yuki was doing so well. Like, he was keeping up with Max. He was doing really fast sectors, and he was doing like a really good job in Red Bull's car. And all the commentators were like, he has to have a low fuel grade. They have to have a separate engine mode. Like, Max must be having like a harder engine mode. And I was like, or Yuki just is a good driver.
Yeah. Like,
have we ever thought about that? But also, I think every driver except George was really struggling with this, but Lando was the one who said it. Lando was like, I keep graining really badly, and his engineer was like, yeah, we don't see any graining. And Lando goes, if you look at my car, you can see it's graining. And he was really struggling to keep the front tires from graining. But I think other drivers had that issue. It was just Lando was arguing with his engineer. But yeah, that's all I have for FP1.
Yeah, not the most interesting session at all, but
don't worry, FP2 is quite interesting. Jack Doohan was back in the car. And he didn't get many laps out.
No.
He crashed. And it was like a bad crash.
Scary.
It kind of looked like Lance's car in Singapore 2023 and Checo's car in Monaco 2024. And the fact that he was able to get out of that car and be cleared by medical really shows how good the engineering is. Obviously it brought out a red flag, but while the red flag was going, they were trying to look at how it happened, and it seemed like he had DRS open going flat out through that turn, which apparently, according to Alpine, Jack figured out he could get like a really good time into that corner if he opened DRS, and Alpine knew it wasn't a safe thing to do, and they didn't tell Jack.
Yeah, which is like strange to me. Like, you have a responsibility, a duty of care to look after the person in the car as a member of your team, as your employee.
Yeah, it's just Alpine obviously doesn't care about Jack Doohan, because if that was PR, I have a feeling they would have told him. And we see how they treat their second drivers. Esteban Ocon getting dropped for Abu Dhabi.
And their reserve drivers.
Yeah. But after they cleared that, drivers got back on track. Not that long, because it went to a yellow flag and then immediately to a red flag, because, like I said, Fernando Alonso loves some gravel. And he was like facing the wrong direction. Like, he beached himself in that gravel, and the Aston Martin.
He goes, I'm stuck.
It's like, no. Thank you, Captain. Obvious. But they were like, oh, that's disappointing for Aston Martin. They wanted to get some flying laps in for Alonso because he hasn't finished a race yet. And they switched to his side of the garage. Looked absolutely unbothered. His garage is like, just another day. Just another day. And then when the red flag was still happening, but like they were like, okay, we're gonna go green in 2 minutes or whatever, everyone started going out, and Lance did a practice start in like one of the lanes he's not supposed to, and he got marked for that one. So they were like, that's under investigation. They went out for green, probably 2 laps in, red flag because the grass was on fire.
Yeah, the grass. I remember this happened at a track last year as well.
Yeah. I don't remember which track it was, but it was like, guys, have we learned nothing? And it was from Charles and George Racing, which was a really kind of fun thing to see. It was probably one of the most exciting things happening in the race so far. But yeah. And during that red flag, Lewis was noted for the same thing as Lance. He did a practice start when he wasn't supposed to. That was noted as well. And at the end of the session, it was stated that Lance and Lewis both just got in trouble, a slap on the wrist, and said, hey, don't do that again. But that was it for FP2.
Yes. Isaac Hadjar came third. And that.
Yay! Everyone's like, it's because it's all the red flags. I don't care. He still got third. And that is with all of his issues, which kind of came to light in FP3, which Alpine also fixed Jack Doohan's car overnight, which was really impressive, and they got him back on track. And then Isaac had an issue with his straps and his seat fit. It was a little too tight down there.
I think quite a lot too tight.
But nobody knew at the time because he's like, guys, I'm having an issue. I'm having the same issue that I've had all weekend. And they were like, okay, can you tell us the issue? And he goes, I don't want to tell you on the radio. So everyone thought like, oh, it's some development issue that they don't want the teams to know they're struggling with. No, I think he was just embarrassed to say it on the radio.
Yes, I think he was just embarrassed to say that.
Yeah, he was getting squished.
Yeah.
But also in this season, in this session, another rookie who seemed to be struggling for the first time this weekend was Kimi. He really couldn't stay on track, and he did go off one time.
He's probably got his algebra problems in the back of his mind.
Yeah. But he went off a little bit. He sparked, and it caused a red flag because guess what?
The grass was on fire.
Who would have thought? Red flag. And during that red flag, once again, just like Lance and Lewis, except this time it was McLaren, Oscar Piastri kind of passed a few people, and Carlos Sainz came onto the radio and was like, I didn't know McLarens could do that. And they were like, yeah, no, we're reporting it. So he was under investigation. Yeah. He was a bit of a snitching going on this weekend. But once again, Piastri never got a repercussion for it, just a slap on the wrist and said, don't do it again.
Yeah, because, oh God, who cares?
But while it was on track, when they finally went back on track, Hulkenberg also was snitching, and I, to this still, don't know if it was a Racing Bull or a Red Bull, but they were in the middle of the road or something, or going really slow, and Hulkenberg was like, whoa, they are just doing their own thing, and Stake was like, yeah, we know, just keep driving. So everyone was snitching. But don't worry, Fernando Alonso wasn't struggling, but we can't have two good Aston Martins. So this one, Lance Stroll came on and was like, hey, something's really wrong with the car. It feels like all four wheels are not on. Aston Martin, what are we doing? What are we doing, Aston Martin? What are we doing? But right after that, don't worry, Aston Martin got to figure it out because the grass caught on fire again. Another red flag. But that was from Gabriel Bortoleto, who had a kind of scary incident happen. It seemed like his car, just something snapped on his car, and he was going basically full throttle, and he saved it, but that was scary. But that was like for, I think it was 2 minutes before the session ended, so they just never resumed it. But that was really scary, and I feel like not a lot of people are talking about how he saved that.
It was impressive.
Because that was impressive. But that brings us to qualifying. So Q1, James Hinchcliffe is Yuki Tsunoda's number one fan. He, all weekend, he was like, Yuki Tsunoda's amazing. He's great. He deserved that seat. He's an amazing driver. He's proved himself, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yes, James Hinchcliffe, yes. But his teammate, Max, seemed to be complaining within a minute on track. And he's like, guys, I have no grip. And I was like, well, okay. I don't know what to say about that. And Isaac also had the same issue as he had in FP3. And that was a problem because they had to fix it and he did not get out for the longest time.
Yeah, like yeah.
Yeah, and he got out, I think they finally got him back on track like with 2 minutes to go. But the other rookie, Ollie Behrman, did pretty well. He consistently went to P5 for the longest time. And then everybody else was doing flying laps, so he got knocked down a bit. But he did out-qualify his teammate, Esteban Ocon. Ollie Behrman got into Q2, and Ocon did not.
Out in Q1 was both stakes. Esteban, Jack Doohan, and Lance Stroll.
Lance Stroll dead last. I want to lose my mind. Thank you very much. You want to know why? Because Aston Martin gave him one singular flying lap. They obviously don't listen to this podcast, so I'll keep asking until one of them does.
In Q2,
there was a red flag, but before that, Fernando knew he wasn't going to get into Q3. And so he had Max Verstappen behind him, and so he helped Max get a slipstream so he could get into Q3. That's his son, Your Honor. That is his son. But there wasn't a lot happening until a red flag came out, and the grass was on fire again. And listen, I feel like after day one, if the grass caught on fire 4 times, you would constantly water the grass. Like, keep sprinklers going, have somebody with a hose.
I just think you should be, like, not very many people seem like actually bothered that the grass is on fire, you know what I mean?
I just don't understand. Like, what do you mean you haven't fixed this issue?
Everyone was like very blasé about the fact that the literal grass had caught fire.
I get that there was a drought happening and everything, but like this could be an issue.
Well, yeah.
But during that red flag, it came out that Carlos Sainz was going to be investigated, and so they replayed it, and he impeded Hamilton. That was impeding. He claimed it wasn't, but it was definitely
Carlos Sainz impeding a Ferrari. Muscle memory for him. But no comment.
But because of the red flag, the drivers that were out were Yuki Tsunoda, Liam Lawson, because of course they're starting on the same line, because why not? Fernando Alonso.
I've written that.
Fernando Alonso, Carlos Sainz, and Pierre Gasly. So Q3, I have really nothing other than Max Verstappen. You literally rock my world. In the 4th fastest car on the grid, he got pole position, and he should have been like a quarter of a second down on the McLarens. But the commentators were like, yeah, but it's Max Verstappen.
Know who rocks my world? Charles. P4 in that shitbox car, while Lewis Hamilton is P8.
But Max was only the 3rd F1 driver to have achieved 4 consecutive pole positions at Suzuka, joining Michael Schumacher and Sebastian Vettel. Seb mention. But that brings us on to the race. So I fell asleep at 12:45 before I could watch it. So woke up though and found out it was a boring race. And I agree.
Notes, but I would like to say, you know, as a whole, Ferrari is not locked in whatsoever this season. However, who is locked in is the Ferrari pit stop crew, because for the third race in a row, Ferrari have had the fastest pit stop.
That is crazy to me. But Carlos Sainz got a 3-place grid penalty, so that knocked a few drivers up, but Liam Lawson and Yuki Tsunoda were still on the same row. Also, before the race, it rained heavily, and Lando was P2, obviously, and there was literal puddles of water right in front of his grid box, and he was like, okay, this is not very fair. I will not be able to get the grip that Max does, because Max's line is dry and mine is literally a pool of water. And I don't remember who it was. I think it was Villeneuve. I switched the feed off immediately after I heard him. But he was like, Lando's a driver. He should know how to do it. Deal with water or whatever. And I was like, sir, his tires are cold. And he has no movement or momentum. He has to start from a standing start going right into water.
If the whole track was wet, then sure, but not like just his.
Yeah. But on lap 3, Max's complaining started. He complained that his upshifts, he literally came onto the radio and he goes, guys, these upshifts are so bad. And I was like, well, that pole position was fun while it lasted. But the other Red Bull, Yuki, seemed to be quite in control. Him and Lawson kept kind of going head to head. Lawson seemed to be struggling a little bit more, but I also feel like it's his first time back in a racing bull. It's his first time in this 2025 car. Give him a race. Let him figure it out. But on lap 10 laps in, everybody, Aston Martin went to Lance Stroll and said, okay, let's pit. Lap 10.
It's giving Canada 2024. When they pit Charles 3 times.
That was crazy. But lap 10 was also when Alex Albon kind of got sassy. He also was complaining about the shifts, and he was like, he went to the radio and he goes, these shifts are so bad, what have we done to them? And he started swearing, and my lord, that man was going through it. I also feel like he didn't know he was gonna be actually broadcasted, because after the race, his post-race interview, they were like, we heard you on the radio, and his face just went,
he was literally like,
he was like, you did? Uh-oh. But can I say, not that I'm calling for him to be penalized or like fined or anything, because I think this is the stupidest rule in the world, but didn't the FIA come out with a new rule that said you couldn't swear on the radio?
Yeah.
Just saying. If that was Max, he would have been disqualified from the championship.
Maybe it doesn't matter because it's Williams and he's like, you know.
Yeah. They were like, you know what, we're
going whatever.
We'll do the other one first. But lap 18, Lando came onto the radio and he goes, okay guys, I need some communication. Where are my times that I'm losing? Like, what's Oscar looking like? What's Max looking like? And it seemed that both McLarens were losing time on Max at the same point of the track. It was a hairpin, and they were like, okay, we're gonna box to overtake Max to see if we can get you some momentum into that hairpin. And it obviously was a bluff. It was lap 18. McLaren obviously wanted to go longer.
Yeah.
But Red Bull did not fall for it. Red Bull's like, that is our trick. That Mercedes will fall for every single time. But lap 21 is when they actually pit their first driver, which is Oscar Piastri. And it was very weird that he pit before Lando. But it was so he could cover Russell's pit stop, so he could finish before George. And they sent him right into traffic.
like right into traffic.
And then the next lap is when we got a record set. But Max, Lando, and Charles all pit. Max and Lando had a little bit of a situation happening. McLaren, I don't know who's at fault, but McLaren sent Lando out like right when Max was passing their pit box. And Lando was like, you know what? I'm going to full send it out onto the track again. He went into the grass.
And we had a little bit of a split. Like, Max pushed me off.
And Max
pushed me off.
Max
it's not
came
fair.
in. Yeah. And Max came on and he drove himself into the grass. Was getting Coda flashbacks and Austria flashbacks. But while all of this was going on, Kimi Antonelli became the race leader. And he was the youngest ever driver to lead a race.
That's a baby goat right there.
He didn't make the other... He didn't get the other record, which was the youngest F1 driver ever to win a race, but he set his own. So good for him. And then lap 25, Alex Albon was seeing red again. He came back onto the radio after... I think they pit him after Ollie, and he goes, honestly, guys, you make absolutely no sense. Williams was like, okay. And he was like, I don't understand why we didn't pit before. And they were like, it was worse before, mate. Believe me. And he goes, yeah, okay, still pit before. Like, I don't really understand it. I don't really understand the pit strategies when it's not, like, trying to overtake. I really don't understand it. I'm not gonna lie.
I have a degree in words for a reason. Maths.
I have a degree in music for a reason. But Max and Lando's incident was noted. Obviously, McLaren reported it. They investigated it. No further action. They literally said, yeah, Lando Norris, you drove yourself into the grass. Listen, sometimes Max is aggressive, but that one, he had the line. He 100%. It was his right of way. Yeah, 100%. It was Max's line. But Carlos kept getting noted for leaving the track and gaining an advantage. And I don't know if he didn't like the track. I don't know if he was having the same issues as Alex. I don't know what was going on. He was quite quiet on the radio, but he was really struggling. He never got a penalty for them, but he kept getting noted. Maybe because he never gained an advantage, but yeah. And also, this is where the commentators were like, wow, Max is getting a 2-second gap between him and Lando Norris, when Lando should be on his butt, overtaking him already. But lap 32, Kimi pits, which means for 10 laps, Kimi Antonelli was leading the race.
The youngest to ever do it.
But Max went back into the lead, and while that was going on, Ocon was asked to let Ollie Behrman by. That's gotta hurt. I know they're on different strategies, and Ollie's fighting other people and whatever, but like being the senior driver and being like, hey, can you let your rookie driver teammate by? That's gotta hurt.
Yeah.
But Ocon was like, yeah, sure, let him go. Like, and then the next lap, Alpine did the same thing, and they asked Jack Doohan to let Pierre go. And Pierre went, thanks. But that one makes sense. The senior driver gets past the rookie driver, like that makes sense.
Yeah.
But at lap 37, Ferrari really showed they knew nothing. Hamilton was like, okay, guys, it's a little quiet. I need some feedback where I'm slow. And they were like, okay, turns 8, 9, 13, and 14. And he was like, yeah, you can't just end with that. How slow am I? How much am I losing? How do I fix it? And they were like, okay, we are checking.
Yeah, that's the standard Ferrari message.
I was like, I wonder if Hamilton is ever driving, and he's like, why did I ever leave Mercedes? Because yes, they were bad, but at least they gave me stats.
Like, it's usually Charles who is getting the, okay, we're checking. The fact that Charles Leclerc has 8 wins to his name is a fucking miracle, okay? Yeah. Ferrari illegal engine. It doesn't matter when you have an incompetent strategy team.
But don't worry, Charles got his own little remark the next lap when Bryant came onto the radio and he goes, "We're suggesting engine braking." And Charles was like, "Yeah, I know. There's a reason I'm not doing it." The drivers were a little bit sassy this weekend, but like honestly, if their teams were really struggling, I'd be sassy too. But the lap after is when I got a little concerned because Max was still leading the race, but GP came onto the radio and he goes, "Okay, Max, I don't want to like make you overthink, but we did a front wing adjustment when we pit you, and it might have been the wrong adjustment." I was like, "What do you mean? What do you mean?
What do you mean?
What do you mean?
What do you mean?"
But the following lap is when Oscar came onto the radio and he's like, "Okay, can we tell Lando that he needs to quicken his pace because I have the pace to catch Max?" And his engineer went, "This is Lando's pace." And Oscar goes, "Okay, I have the pace to catch Max." That was him kindly saying, "Please let me by. I'm the faster of the two," which F1 TV said he was. Sky Sports said Lando was faster. And then ESPN said Lando was faster. So I don't actually know who was faster. But I don't understand why they didn't at least attempt to swap to see if Max could be overtaken by Oscar, because then they would have a 1-3. And if he just didn't catch it, they could just swap back.
I think Lando had the faster pace to start with, like in the earliest stint of the race. But then I think, well, he was struggling with grading all weekend. And then,
I just don't think this track is very suitable for Lando's driving style.
And then I think Oscar was faster in the second stint, and Oscar's pretty good around Suzuka. So
I just don't understand why they didn't swap them to at least attempt to get a 1-3. Because it was lap 40.
Well, I know why.
Laps to do it.
I know why, but I can't say it.
Like, I understand why Lando is the favored one. He's leading the championship. I get it. But he wasn't going to win on the pace that he had. So why wouldn't they attempt to get their second driver to overtake Max, get more constructor points? And if he didn't overtake Max on lap 50, 51, whatever, switch back. I just feel like that's very sensible, but, you know.
Yeah.
But on lap 48, Kimi Antonelli was the icon of the weekend. Marcus Bradley not Marcus Bradley, that's George's. Bono came onto the radio and he goes, "You are the fastest man on track." Kimi went, "I'm giving everything, mate."
Kimi cannot talk on the radio normally at all.
He sounds like a Victorian child every time. But Bono went back and he went, "Good lad." And I was like, did Mercedes tell him he has to speak like a Victorian child every time he hits the radio button? Or is this just how he talks?
He's like, "Please, sir, give me some more."
Also, speaking of Kimi Antonelli, he is about to receive his Mercedes car from Mercedes in Italy, right? Yeah. But according to Italian law, he will not be able to drive it for 3 years on Italian roads.
What's the fucking point?
I'm like, maybe he should keep it in England. But yeah, lap 50, that was the last lap I had a note on. There was a Sebastian Vettel mention. Always have to note when Seb's mentioned. But they were talking about how Red Bull undercut Lotus and Romain Grosjean with Sebastian Vettel and Mark Webber. And they eventually went on to win because they undercut and they swapped positions, even though the drivers were like, "Please don't swap us." And they went on to win the race. and I think it was Alec Jax or Julian Palmer. I don't remember who it was, but they were like, that's something McLaren doesn't have the skill set to do. And I was like, oh,
leave Oscar Piastri out of this.
Oh, but I will say, like, on lap 50, I wouldn't have swapped my drivers. They have Oscar has 3 laps to do it. Like, I wouldn't have jeopardized that, but like on lap 40, I would have at least tried. But then the last 3 laps were uneventful, but Max Verstappen, you rock my freaking world. Max Verstappen won Suzuka. He was the first driver to win 4 times consecutively on this track. So good for him. His radio, I almost cried. GP's like, that was simply lovely, mate. And he was like, yeah, oh my god, yeah. He shows up when he needs to. Even in a 4th fastest car, he will do what he wants.
9 months without a Max Verstappen win. He was pregnant for this.
But after the race, that wasn't the end of it. It came out, I think, 2 hours later. Carlos Sainz was fined 2,000 euros.
No, 20,000.
20,000, thank you. 20,000 euros for being late to the national anthem because he was sick, and he had a doctor's note saying, yes, he's late because he was sick.
Where does that money go? Also, it came out that George, as director of the GDPA, had, because if you remember at Suzuka last year, George had got filmed in the bathroom.
Yeah.
That
was so messed up.
That George had requested better shower facilities at all the tracks, including the temporary ones, and it got shot down because
a driver said it was pointless.
Yeah, and
I need to know who that driver is.
You stink.
What do you mean you don't want to shower? They were like, we can just shower in our hotel room, and I'm like,
yeah, you can, but
ew, gross. That was it for Suzuka. It is a triple header, so this weekend is Bahrain.
Round 4, and if you recall to Charles' pre-season post, this is where the season starts, because in his caption he did put, see you in Bahrain.
He's so funny.
Like, okay, King.
Also, we're filming this on media day for Bahrain.
And George got a haircut.
Oscar got a haircut.
Showed up in the same fit.
Yeah. Do you think they text each other and be like, let's match?
In my old fandom, this could only mean one thing. It's like, I don't know. Because I didn't know Charles had normal jeans and a non-Ferrari t-shirt. So, yeah. Also, it has come out that it looks like Kelly Piquet is pregnant with a girl. So, and according to Helmut Marko, she's, I mean, not that means much.
Beginning of May. No, the end of May?
In May, on a non-race weekend.
See, they said the beginning of May, and I went, Miami?
But like, well, you know, babies
are a girl dad.
Yeah. So,
anyways, that was it for Suzuka. We will see you back here for Bahrain
in like 3 days.
Yay! Bye.
Bye.